This video is brought to you by Brilliant. On Wednesday afternoon, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak gave what might well have been the most depressing election campaign launch in British history. After hours of speculation, Sunak appeared outside number 10 in the soaking rain, without an umbrella, to announce that, in his words,
"Now is the moment for Britain to choose its future."
Only to have his speech mostly drowned out by nearby anti-Tory protesters, blaring "Things Can Only Get Better," one of New Labour's anthems during their 1997 victory, out of a boombox. Sunak then rushed off to a conference centre in London for his first campaign event, but anything he said was overshadowed by the fact that his security forcibly removed Sky News reporters who had guessed where he was going to speak in advance. In a very English way, the accosted reporter narrated his own removal.
And I'm being forcibly removed. We just simply wanted to have access tonight at Sky News. But unfortunately, we're told that because there are pool arrangements in place, we're not allowed.
As you can probably tell from the frantic nature of not just our coverage, but that of every other British media outlet.
Are you looking forward to the election? Can you win it? Can you win it?
This all came as a bit of a shock. Sunak had always maintained that the election would happen in the second half of the year, but the consensus was that he was talking about the autumn, when things might have improved for him. Not now, when he's more than 20 points behind in the polls, and a wipeout looks pretty much inevitable. Sunak's decision has even bemused his own party. Cabinet ministers almost immediately began furiously texting journalists, complaining they weren't warned in advance and had no idea why he'd done it. And backbench Tories are apparently so unhappy about the decision that they're trying to stop the election from happening by staging a motion of no confidence in Sunak before Parliament's formally dissolved. So in this video, we're going to explain why everyone thought he'd call the election in autumn, and provide 6 possible theories for why he called it now instead. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. So let's just start by explaining why everyone thought it'd be in the autumn. In short, the conventional thinking was that the NHS, the economy and the UK's immigration crisis, at least as it's perceived by Conservatives, would all be improved by the autumn, allowing Sunak to campaign on a sort of all the hard work has paid off platform. NHS waiting lists, for instance, are expected to fall below 6 million by the end of this year, and to a 10-year low by the end of next year, thanks to waning COVID pressure, extra NHS capacity, and the end of junior doctor strikes. In the last couple of weeks, we've learned that the UK economy has returned to growth, and inflation has fallen to near the Bank of England's 2% target. And if things continue in that direction, by the autumn, interest rates might have come down, and real wages might be going up. Net migration is also due to start falling later this year, as the tighter visa regime for students and skilled workers begins to bite. But this will only become clear when the ONS figures are collated in the autumn, and the deterrent effect of the Rwanda plan, if it exists, will only become apparent by the end of this year. On top of this, some Tories hope that an autumn election would minimise the chances of Nigel Farage returning to the Reform Party, because it'd be too busy cozying up to Trump in the US ahead of the presidential election. So why on earth has Sunak gone for a summer election instead, given he's something like 20 points behind in the polls? Well, the honest answer is no one knows. But we've come up with 6 possible reasons that might have convinced Sunak to jump the gun. The first is that he's simply given up. He's had enough of being the second most unpopular Prime Minister in living memory after Liz Truss, and he just wants to pack it in. This might sound like a cheap partisan shot at Sunak, but it's really not intended as one. For starters, being Prime Minister at the moment does genuinely look like a miserable job. But this is also the choice explanation for many well-connected, well-informed right-wing commentators in the UK.
Other than that Rishi Sunak's had enough and he wants out.
The second is that he wants to surprise Reform. Given Reform could only muster 300 or so council candidates at the local elections a couple of weeks ago, there's basically zero chance that they can field 632 viable candidates between now and July the 4th. And this prospect of chaos has apparently deterred Farage from getting involved, which is genuinely great news for Sunak. The third is that he wants to surprise Labour. Because they were also expecting an autumn election, Labour haven't quite finished their manifesto, and Sunak might be hoping that, by forcing them to speed-write their policy platform without giving Starmer time to build consensus, he'll be able to trigger some Labour infighting, exacerbating the current internal divisions over Gaza. The fourth is that Sunak thinks that this is his best chance at fighting an economy election. If he waits until the autumn, it's very possible the big issue for voters would be something other than the economy. The worst of inflation might have died down, and voters might instead be more focused on something like immigration. If something like small boat crossings had gone up over the summer. Or sewage, if water companies dump even more sewage in the UK's rivers this year than they did last year. Even though the economic headlines aren't amazing, things are nonetheless improving, and it's clearly the topic Sunak feels most comfortable talking about. He might also be thinking that it's one of his best avenues to attack Labour. The economy has historically been a political weak spot for Labour, and their commitment to matching the Tories' restrictive spending targets means that there's not actually that much difference between the two main parties on this issue. The fifth is that, contrary to popular opinion, things aren't going to get better in the autumn. Inflation is stubbornly above target, which means that interest rate cuts, and the relief that comes with them for mortgage holders, now looks unlikely, and growth isn't strong enough to justify pre-election tax cuts. Similarly, if the Rwanda plan doesn't work as a deterrent, then Sunak is better off going now rather than later in the year, when the Rwanda plan will look even more expensive and ineffective. Going now also denies the Conservatives and Labour their annual party conferences, which is good news for the Conservatives, given their conference would be beset by furious infighting, and bad news for Labour, given that they were expected to rake in loads of donations at theirs. The sixth and final possible reason is simply that Sunak knows something we don't, and that there's some absolutely enormous catastrophe coming down the track for the British state. Maybe it's a Thames Water bailout, which would cost either customers or the taxpayer billions of pounds. Maybe it's something that Simon Case is about to discuss during his appearance in front of the COVID inquiry today. Who knows? This sort of information asymmetry would also explain why Sunak has come to a different conclusion to basically everyone else, without in some way implying he's being foolish. Unfortunately though, simply no one other than Sunak knows for sure why he called it when he did. When making videos like this, we rely on tons of data analysis to interpret crucial economic data and understand political decisions. But this kind of analysis isn't just crucial for our jobs. As our world becomes more driven by AI and data, your job will likely require more analytical skills too. That's why we've been using Brilliant. Brilliant is the STEM learning platform which can teach you all the skills you'll need in an increasingly digital workplace. They've just introduced a whole collection of new programming and LLM courses, suitable for learners at any level, taking you through everything from learning Python to understanding the importance of training data. And Brilliant isn't just about memorization and lectures. Brilliant teaches you by doing, using active learning techniques to teach you the principles behind otherwise quite complex topics, and ensuring that you actually understand what's going on, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI. All of Brilliant's courses are split into easy-to-digest chunks, meaning you can quickly and easily gain real knowledge in just a few minutes a day, with fun lessons you can do whenever you have time, replacing mindless scrolling on the bus or waiting for coffee with something stimulating and rewarding. To gain access to Brilliant for free for a full 30 days, head to brilliant.org/TLDR. or click the link in the description. That way you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription, and they'll know that you came from us, which really helps us out. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and thank you for your support.